Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, because this will help me out in growing the channel and being able to produce more videos like this one. This episode will guide you through the issues of Uncanny X-Men published in 1982. Issue 162. Wolverine is on the run. He thinks he's dying. He's aware he's on an alien planet, but with his brain being on overload, he can't seem to make sense of what his senses are telling him. Too many unknown inputs, so he keeps running and hoping things will get better eventually. Suddenly he's overcome by pain in his gut. He thinks to himself how it's getting worse each time he has it, like a white-hot blade is cutting him. At that moment he gets attacked by one of the alien flora and fauna around him. A tentacle wraps around him and tries to crush his body, which will not work because of his adamantium-laced bones, the strongest metal known to mankind. His claws, which he extends, are made of that material as well. He rips the creature apart but does get sprayed by its pollen. They have an hallucinogenic effect on him. He has a vision of him being back in Japan with his loved one Mariko Yoshida. They are riding on horses and are proclaiming their love and affection for one another while sharing a kiss. Logan is aware of eagles heading their way and he notices something is off about them. He slaps his cowboy hat on Mariko's horse and tells her to make way for the tree line, try to get some kind of cover for the eagles. When what Logan thought were birds get closer, he finds out they're BROOD and they've been hunting for him. One of them shoots Mariko with some kind of beam right in front of Logan. He then wakes up from his vision and finds himself facing actual BROOD. He's surprised they have found him and the BROOD tell him he's a fool for thinking they wouldn't. He's one of them and no one can help him and nothing can save him. He jumps away as he gets shot at and makes his way downward, which grants him more cover from the flying BROOD. One of them follows him and he attacks that one. Sleazoids, he calls them. The BROOD, with their armor plate-like skin, razor-sharp teeth and tail stingers loaded with venom, are exemplary killing machines, with no deadlier being in existence, apart from maybe Wolverine himself. More of them come and Wolverine fights them off, until the ground they were on collapses. He tries to cling on things, but it's no use. He keeps falling, fast. He's thinking to himself that even though his mutant ability of self-healing can survive pretty much any kind of physical trauma, he might not be able to survive an impact from this height. Luckily, he ends up on some kind of spider's web. He passes out for a bit, and when he comes to, he finds himself on what he finds out to be a carcass of one of the BROOD's living ships. He wasn't able to see much during the night, but as it's dawn now, he has a clear view of his surroundings. The carcass of the ship seems to have been slowly assimilated by the flora and fauna of the planet over the years that it has been lying dead here. The BROOD that were hunting Wolverine discuss whether they should proceed hunting him or return to the base. One of them says he wants to follow because Wolverine is apparently a host for the Queen. The Huntmaster tells the novice that if he really wants to follow Wolverine and sacrifice himself, the way is clear and his scent is easy to follow. They return to the base. Wolverine, still lying in a web-like construct, is being approached by the creatures who have spun the web. They are coming for their food. Wolverine has another one of the sudden pains in his gut, and as he blinks, he's suddenly back on Lilandra's personal vessel, with everybody just lounging, minutes before Deathbird's coup d'etat. We see Colossus not in the best of moods, due to what happened to his little sister, and Storm is also having a hard time trying to deal with her meeting her older self and what she had told about her heritage, her being bound to the Arcane. Then Deathbird and the BROOD attack and detonate the bomb. Wolverine thinks back to how he woke up, scrambled and confused, how he heard weird sounds in the background and was flooded with a multitude of scents, sickening scents, and having strange visual displays while he was trying to regain psychic balance and focus. He then wakes up to find him and the others are prisoners of the BROOD. The others don't seem to mind, instead they seem to be enjoying themselves. And he finds out why. They are seemingly being held as heroes by the Shi'ar. His mind is confused on how this had happened. It doesn't make any sense to him. He has contradicting thoughts, and the harder he tries to sort things out, the more disoriented he got. He gets approached by Carol Danvers, who asks him to dance. He tells her that something's fishy, and he thinks they're being set up. Carol tells him that he's probably getting paranoid in his old age, and that he should just relax and have fun. Just enjoy the party. Carol then gets approached by two Shi'ar, and they tell her that they notice how Carol's physiology is different from the others, and how they would like to examine her further. She complies, and Wolverine yells out to her, saying that they're Brood and not Shi'ar. Logan starts to wonder if he's going crazy, since he seems to be the only one present who's seeing this. The other X-Men try to calm Wolverine down, and they're being presented in front of Lilandra on the stage for their awards as heroes. There's someone standing next to Lilandra, and Wolverine feels himself going into autopilot, which happens when he's in a combat situation. He wonders why he's the only one noticing things. The ceremony proceeds. One after the other, the X-Men are embraced by the unknown person. Nothing out of the ordinary seems to happen, until it's Kitty's turn for an embrace. She screams out, asking the X-Men for help, saying how this is impossible and that this cannot be real. She's unable to use her phasing powers, and she screams out for Wolverine, but he can't seem to help her. Some kind of power keeps him from being able to do something. The unknown character tells Kitty to hush and look into her eyes and hear her voice, asking if she's really that horrible to behold. Kitty tells her to please don't, but it's already done. Now it's Wolverine's turn. He's on the platform with just her. He feels as if he is a prey and should do something. Escape, stop her, claw her, but he wasn't able to do anything, it was already too late. He's back on the web, with the creatures closing in on him. He starts to cut loose and ends up in a berserker rage. A side of Wolverine the X-Men have not seen of him, and he hopes they will never see it. Him having dealt with one of the creatures makes the rest of the scavengers lose interest in him, since they already have an easy meal right in front of them now, so Wolverine is able to escape. He makes his way up, the way from which he fell, and he figures by the way the Brood didn't follow him that they themselves are very aware of the dangers below. While he's making his way up, he notices how he feels lousy, even though he hardly got hurt in the fight with the creatures on the web. He moves slow and his grip is weak, but it gets worse. His nerves are on fire and he's in pain with the slightest move. He keeps pushing on though, which he probably shouldn't be doing, and eventually takes a rest, hardly being able to breathe. He lays himself down like an animal does when they're close to dying, and he hopes it won't take long. His memory takes him back to the night before, when he woke up from the first painful attack in his gut. He thinks he woke up somewhere else than he actually did, and he makes his way to Storm to tell her things aren't alright. She immediately dismisses him and tells him he has been acting strangely ever since her arrival, and how it's obvious he's in pain now and ill, and that she will get him a physician. Wolverine then knocks her out by pinching the proper nerve to stop her from alarming the wrong people, and proceeds on his way. He makes his way to Kitty's room and thinks about how she tried to fight whatever was happening in the throne room. How Kitty, even though she may only be a child, has more smarts and guts than most adults, and most heroes. He wants to take her along, but he's probably going to have to move hard and fast, and he can't guarantee her survival. So he kisses her on the head and whispers her a promise. As he does that, an image flashes through his mind, of him holding Kitty in his arms with his hand on her chest, and the staccato clicking of his claws going out of his forearms and then retracting again, with the light fading from Kitty's eyes. He wonders what they had done to him to be thinking such things. He makes his way further and he finds out. He witnesses the ceremony. He sees a cadre of the Brood having their full attention on Fang, an old foe of the X-Men, a renegade member of the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. Logan enjoys seeing Fang being held captive, and he wonders if the Brood will reward his treachery with torture or execution. Fang was pleading for his life and the Brood just laugh. Somehow Wolverine understands exactly what they're saying. Fang's body begins to smoke and he shrieks. Fang asks why the Brood are doing this, since he serves Deathbird and her and the Brood are allies. They respond by saying the Brood need no allies. There are only enemies and slaves. And they tell him that they use Deathbird as they now will use him. Fang starts to transform, as the Brood tell him he had been implanted with a Warrior Prime Brood egg, which had now reached maturity and is hatching inside of him. how it will consume him, and when the process is done, will absorb the totality of his memories, abilities and genetic potential. How he gave his life for one of the brood to be born. After seeing this, the whole ceremony in the throne room now makes sense to Wolverine. They have all been infected, made host for the Queen's eggs. What has now happened to Fang will happen to them all eventually. He screams out. The brood hear this, and thus the hunt was on. He gathers his bearings, for as much as that is possible. He wonders if there's any kind of cure against being infected with an egg. He sees one of the brood and can tell by the markings on his forehead that it's the same brood that was hosted by Fang. He jumps at him, with the risk of missing and falling for miles. He then cuts off the brood stingers and tells him to cooperate or he will cut him. The brood knows Wolverine isn't bluffing and plays along, while telling Wolverine his fate is sealed. Wolverine has another one of the painful attacks and gets thrown off the brood's back and towards the other brood. They attack him, trying to take him prisoner and not kill him, but they're not successful. As he stands victorious, Wolverine thinks about how he hasn't been able to cut loose like this for a while, and how it feels good. He's aware that killing a cadre of the brood is nothing compared to taking out a whole race. At that moment, he has yet another attack. The intensity is nothing like he's ever experienced before, nothing compared to all the injuries he's had before. He hungers for the pain to go away, he hungers for oblivion. His body starts to smoke, just like Fang's did. The metamorphosis has begun. Wolverine fights as the egg reaches into his mind, reshaping it into its image, while simultaneously reshaping his body. His adamantium skeleton averts the transformation, and Wolverine uses it as an anchor, as a lifeline, while he tries to fight off the transformation. After another night has passed and the sun rises again, Wolverine's mutant immune system has dealt with the Queen's egg. It was alien and a parasite, and his body reacted to it like it would to a disease. The strain of the battle inside Logan's body made him sick, and his body was struggling against the takeover. It was a close call, but he won in the end. He then sees the palace where the brood are keeping the X-Men captive, hypnotized and happy. He knows they are infected as well, and wonders if he can even save them. He can't even be sure of whether the metamorphosis has already taken place. He thinks back to the hallucinations he had about killing Kitty, and if he has to, if she can't be cured, he will. He'll kill them all. And then, when he's done, it'll be the Sleazoids' turn. Thanks for watching this video.